A vote for change. After a year of partisan politics, all three top criminal justice positions in Broward County are now held by black men. Even amid competitive battles, 2020's historic election saw victories for Sheriff Gregory Tony, State Attorney Harold Pryor, and Public Defender Gordon Weeks. We talked to all three about criminal justice reform and their post-election plans.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to NBC6 Voices, streaming live right now on the NBC6 YouTube and Facebook pages. I'm Jawan Strader. Again, if you would like to comment or add to the conversation, please go ahead and join and add your comments right there. We'll make them available if needed. Also, if you have any questions, let us know. We'll try to get to them as well. Well, this week's election was a very decisive victory for candidates of color in South Florida, specifically in Broward County, where history was made in the county as black men defied the odds to make history. Elected to county sheriff, state attorney, and public defender. And here to talk a little bit more about that is elect Harold Pryor, is Broward County's new elect state attorney. He joins us now with more to talk about his victory and also history made and the changes he plans on bringing about to the state attorney's office. Harold, welcome to the show.
Jawan, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I know you've been busy, man. So how does it feel to make history?
You know, I am extremely humbled and ecstatic of the results from last night. I've said that I am truly standing on the shoulders of giants, many of the legal giants that came before me, who were the first in their profession. And I don't want to let them down, but also I don't want to let the citizens of Broward County down. This is an important race. This was an important task that the citizens of Broward County have entrusted me with. It's an enormous responsibility to serve as state attorney in Broward County. The state attorney is the chief law enforcement officer or the chief law officer in this circuit. And so I don't take that lightly. And I want to put the safety and health of our citizens first.
And Harold, you are now taking over for someone who has been a state attorney now for 44 years, Mike Satz. And I got to ask you, why is it that you decided to run? And brother, I'm sorry, but you're only 33 years old, right?
Yes.
33 years old. So you got to tell me, you beat out a field of candidates. Why is it that you decided to run in a position that Mike Satz, man, he has been there for a long time?
Yes. First and foremost, I have to thank Michael Satz for his service to the citizens of Broward County. 40 plus years of anything is a long time. And he's done a great job and he served us well. But quite honestly, Joanne, I looked at the world around me. I looked at what was going on. I was inspired after the death of Trayvon Martin to do something else, to get involved, to join the criminal justice system. With the deaths of Sandra Bland, the deaths of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and George Floyd, I looked at myself and I looked at my life around me, and I asked myself, what am I doing? You know, Martin Luther King once said that life's most persistent and urgent questions is, what are you doing for others? And I have a 3-year-old son, and I look at my 3-year-old son and I asked my wife, I said, how selfish? I said to my wife, how selfish of us to bring this beautiful, vibrant black little boy into this dangerous world. And what am I doing to make this world safer? What am I doing to make this world a better place? And I could have had fun and made money as a high-powered attorney, going along that trajectory. But I saw the world around me and I wanted to make it better. I wanted to make Broward County a safer community, not only for my son, but so many other children in this county. And so that's why I threw my hat in the ring. I was told by many people, wait your turn. Now is not your time. And I truly felt that now was the time. And we proved it in the primary and we proved it in general election that, in fact, now is the time.
And definitely you did prove it by winning. And I got to ask you about criminal justice reform. You kind of touched on it right there when you talked about some of the incidents that have been taking place across our country. And I want to ask you about criminal justice reform because you will now have that power. You will have that power to decide how someone gets charged or what they should be charged with. So what do you plan on doing as far as criminal justice reform is concerned?
Well, we have to restore justice, fairness, and equality back into the criminal justice system. But also we need to invest in the system, invest in our people and the community. And how do we do that? We need to not prosecute certain low-level offenses or get people the help that they need. If you have a drug addiction issue or a mental health issue, We need to do everything in our power to get you in a diversion program and actually get you the help that you need. We need to focus on the more serious crimes, the more heinous crimes. Since 2016, we've noticed an uptick in crimes of anti-Semitism or crimes connected to anti-Semitism, a crime against our Black and Brown communities and our LGBTQ communities. And so I'm dedicated as next state attorney to focus on those serious crimes. But criminal justice reform also ensures that we have a state attorney's office that is diverse, that is actually reflective of the communities that it serves, but also holding law enforcement accountable as well. We've noticed a trend where law enforcement officers were treated differently than everyday citizens because of a badge. And so I want to change that. We need to hold them accountable. I want to work with the good law enforcement officers to weed out the bad law enforcement officers. And so that's what criminal justice reform would look like in a Harold Pryor administration. It'd be openness, accountability, and fairness through every stage of the prosecutorial process.
And you're not the only one that made history, as far as attorneys are concerned, but somewhat of a colleague of yours, a counterpart of yours, and that is Gordon Weeks. He made history as well, becoming the first Black public defender in Broward County. So he said something similar. Here's what he had to say when addressing the same topic.
I am very hopeful, like many people, after this election, with what the possibilities can be for Broward County. Change is important. Change coming on the horizon with new leadership in the state attorney's office, new leadership in the sheriff's office, and new leadership in the public defender's office will hopefully effectuate some meaningful change, to put some stopgaps in place to ensure that if diversion, if there are other opportunities to address behavior without criminalizing and demonizing a whole host of individuals, that we explore those opportunities first.
Okay, well, let's talk about something else that has been the topic of discussion when it comes to criminal justice reform and police officers, because we've seen it over the years when it comes to protecting police officers out there, and that's qualified immunity, which protects police officers, prosecutors, and government officers from damages from violating someone's constitutional rights. So should that protection be revisited, Harold?
I do. And I think that's a legislative issue. I think that's an issue that we need to address in the legislature. The standard is pretty high. The standard is pretty hard. It doesn't totally bar actions being brought, but I think the standard and how you evaluate those cases and when you can bring a case against a law enforcement officer who's acting outside of their duty or lawful duty, then yes, I think someone should be able to go beyond that. But truly, that's a legislative issue. And that's why this election was important. We need to have like-minded legislatures that understand these issues and that can reform these issues and change laws like qualified immunity, both at the local level and, the state level, and the federal level.
And how would you say, Harold, your past made you who you are today, especially when it comes to becoming a state attorney? So are you able to relate to that Black male who is being pulled over by police, who may have a gun pointed at them or to their head, who may be thrown on the pavement, who may have a knee to their neck? Are you able to relate to that in any way?
Yes. That was the reason why I became a lawyer. My reasoning as to why I went to law school or to become a lawyer was never to be a high-powered attorney to make a lot of money. It was to reform the system. I've come from 5 generations of prior men, Black men who've grown up here in Florida, and 5 generations of prior Black men who've had to have that discussion with their sons on how do you interact with law enforcement, because it could be your last. And, I've experienced that from age of 14 all the way up until when I was a prosecutor, leaving the courthouse, prepping for trial up until 11:30 at night, driving home and being pulled over by a law enforcement officer. And he couldn't tell me or give me reasonable articulable suspicion as to why he was pulling me over. And I've experienced that. I've been harassed. I've been pulled over before for no reason because I look suspicious. And I think experiences like that are important because it brings a different perspective to these roles. And I truly believe that you can't be the next state attorney, the next sheriff or public defender or judge in this circuit if you fundamentally don't understand that we have a criminal justice system that has been traditionally stacked against people of color and poor folk. And so if we take these roles with that perspective, we can restore justice, fairness, and equality back into the criminal justice system. A wise man just recently told me, and it makes sense. He says, the criminal justice system isn't bad itself. It's just the people that's in it and the people that have corrupted. And so my goal is to ensure that we have state attorneys and law enforcement officers that understand these principles and are willing to have a system that comports with justice, fairness, and equality.
Okay, Harold, I want to talk about the no cash bail. But before I get to your thoughts on it, here's what Gordon Weeks had to say about this same topic. Let's listen.
Cash bail is one of the most debilitating and disparate processes in the criminal court system. When you are arrested for a crime, you are innocent until proven guilty. And simply because you cannot afford to bond out of jail should not factor into how you resolve or move forward with the charges against you. If you have to decide between putting a roof over your family's head, between going back to work to make sure that your car bill is paid so your wife or your children can get to school, and you will plea out a case rather than sit in jail until the matter is heard before a court, bail is not being fairly used. If you can not be a threat to community safety, then we should make sure that you have an opportunity to be re-engaged back in the community.
All right, so I want to hear your thoughts on that. And why is it a better solution in some instances for Broward County citizens?
Look, I agree with Gordon on the concept. As my daddy would say, and I'm a country boy, my daddy would say the cash bail system or the criminal justice system or anything in life, it's a system of the haves and the have-nots. If you have it, you're getting out. If you don't have it, you're probably staying in, right? And that's the cash bail system summed up. We often let economic factors, someone's ability to pay, be the determining factor whether or not someone could go home, and it doesn't accurately assess whether someone's a danger to the community. My goal, and it's going to be a long process, is to see Florida, not only Broward County, but see Florida move to a true risk assessment pretrial program, rather moving away from the cash bail system. So what we would do in this program, we would look at each case. We would make an assessment based on whether or not this person is a danger to the community, a danger to a victim if a victim is involved, the person's likelihood of actually returning to court, because that's why cash bail was created in the first place. And we look at those factors. And if you pose no threat to the community or danger to the community, if you pose no threat to a particular victim, if it's a victim involved, but we have to speak with the victim because Florida victims have a constitutional right to be heard and seen through every stages of the prosecutorial process. You look at those factors and determine whether or not this person remains in custody or not. I think it's perfect because if you have a violent offense and this person poses a risk to the community, and you're also looking at this person's background as well, and you're seeing that this victim in a particular case is in danger, you keep that person in custody. The District of Columbia, and I believe New Jersey, the state of New Jersey, has moved over to a system like this. And the last numbers that I saw regarding the District of Columbia, they had nearly a 90% return rate. So people that were in this risk assessment program or pretrial risk assessment program, they were 90% more likely to show up to court, to return to court again, and they didn't have to be put in custody. And actually, I venture to say, and I would submit to you, Juwan, that is probably a better return rate than Broward County. And so there are creative ways out there that we can reform the cash bail system. Right now, I'm in agreement where we are now, where if it's a nonviolent misdemeanor offense, the courts is moving away from issuing cash bail. But I would love to see it expanded to other nonviolent offenses past misdemeanors. But that's going to be an elongated process. We have to work with the court system. We have to work with the stakeholders to ensure that we do it reasonably and prudently.
All right, Harold Pryor, thank you so much for your thoughts. And again, we want to wish you a big congrats and congratulations on your big win there in Broward County. And in regards to making history as well, Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You got it. You got it, brother. All right. Well, moving on now, we want to go to another history maker, and he is joining us now with more on that. So please welcome to the show, Broward County Sheriff Gregory Tony. He joins us now with more on his new elected position, official elected position, because this brother had quite the journey to get to this spot. We're going to talk about it. But first and foremost, Sheriff Tony, how are you doing? How does it feel to make history? Okay, you may be muted, Sheriff. So let's see if you are muted. Are you muted? Yeah, there we go. No, it's muted right there. It's unmuted. Okay, I'm having problems hearing you right now. So we're going to try to work on that audio here right now. Let's see if we can get some audio here. This is a great thing about technology. You gotta love it, and hopefully I'm going to get some sort of a direction from Denise or Jermel to make sure that we can hear you and see if we can hear you or not, and try to get that audio here working. Okay, go ahead and speak again. Okay, so no, we do not have sound from you. So we're going to try to work on that right now. Apparently, according to our producer, it says you are still muted. Do you see that? On the side, mic is open and sounds. All right. So anyway, we're thanking everyone for joining us. Please stand by. Of course, this is live stream. This is a little technical issue that we're going to try to work out right now and try to get the sheriff unmuted. So Jermel saying it's not muted. So Jermel, can you tell me why we can't hear him? All right, corrected. Let's see. Okay, so they're asking you to go ahead and sign off and sign back on. Sign off and sign back on, Sheriff Tony, and see if that works a little bit better. So that's a great thing about technology. And this is what we're having to deal with in the COVID crisis. I tell you that is all of this technology. But again, we're talking about some great things. So if you are watching right now, please forgive us because we're dealing with this little hiccup here with trying to get Sheriff Tony on. But we are talking about history being made in the election in Broward County. We're talking about basically people showing up to the polls, people voting there in Broward County, but also the Black men leaders in Broward County making history in their elected positions. The state attorney's office, state attorney position, replacing Sats there, who has been in there for more than 40 years. And then also when you're talking about the public defender and Gordon Weeks, and then of course, Sheriff Tony as well. So again, these are some important positions that we want to talk about to you, and we want to hear from them and hear what they think about this history making, these history making changes here with their positions here in 2020. So we're going to try to get them back on and see if we got that sound. All right. I see you. I see you, Sheriff Tony. I do not hear you. I do not hear you, though. I know. I'm trying to see if it's muted at all. Oh, man. It's okay, because this will be corrected when this airs on NBC6 Voices on Saturday morning. So this will be airing then. So still nothing, according to my producer as well, as far as the audio is concerned. Sometimes it could be, you could use an earphone, Bluetooth, or whatever to try to connect to the audio as well. But if you do a mic check, you should see the mic bars coming up. Yeah. So we try to get that. His team is in there right now working on this particular issue. So we are going to talk to Sheriff Tony about, he's going to log off and log back on. We're going to talk to him shortly about how he got to this point. As you may recall, Sheriff Tony being appointed by Governor Ron DeSantis to the sheriff's post after Scott Israel was removed from sheriff after the tragedy and his handling of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. You may remember that. But then Sheriff Tony, he came under fire for once he started or decided that he was going to run for sheriff. He came under fire and faced some ugly criticism out there. We're going to talk about all those things and how he got to this point. This is basically his first political race that he had to run. So I cannot hear, but let's see if they can hear you, Sheriff Tony. So I'm looking at Sheriff Tony is sending us out something right now, trying to get him right back on. So we're going to try to work on this. Please forgive us right now because I am having to kill some of this time right now. There's no video as of right now, according to our technical director. So again, we're having some issues with that. So we apologize to all of you out there. But again, we want to hear from Sheriff Tony on this big win, and we want to get his thoughts on some of those as well. And making history here in Broward County. So we're going to try to get to that in just a moment. And again, this has been a very, very big week here in Florida and across the country as we continue to wait for the final numbers to come out with the elections and especially the presidential race, which continues here across our country. But here in Florida, of course, Florida making great strides as far as President Trump and the Republicans making great strides in the Cuban American community. That has been the talk. And then also some upsets that people were not thinking in the congressional seats in District 26 and District 27. We saw some incumbents actually lose their seats to Republican newcomers. And like Miami-Dade County Mayor Carlos Jimenez, who decided to run for Congress, and Maria Elvira Salazar, who beat out Donna Shalala. So again, we saw some things happen in the elections here. So it was definitely very interesting. But of course, it continues to play out on a national front when it comes to the presidential races. So again, we're going to continue to follow that on NBC6. You can also follow that a little bit more on our website as well. Okay. So let's try to see if we can get Sheriff Tony back. I know they are still working on it. And here he is. He popped up. I got you.
All right.
Yes.
Finally.
We got you. Yes, we are good, brother. We're good.
Welcome.
Man, I'm having to talk about everything, man. About when I was a little kid and I came up, I was giving them my whole life story, man.
You did a good job. Thank you so much.
We got you, my brother. Oh, man. Well, Sheriff Tony, I want to start off by, again, congratulating you on being elected sheriff of Broward County and making history being the first Black sheriff of Broward County. I got to ask you, how does it feel?
Look, I tell you, it's very humbling. You know, I came into the organization, Juwan, roughly 20 plus months ago, stepped into an organization that had been kind of ridiculed through the public related to failures. And I had to dive in very quickly. And I wanted to prove myself as a competent individual that could get this job done, not just through sake of an appointment, but hopeful that the community would rally behind me and it give me an opportunity through their votes. And they have. And so I'm excited to continue to push out the agenda that we've started, and we have a lot of work to do.
And I got to ask you, how tough is it getting into politics? Because you came into this saying that I'm not a politician. I still remember that press conference with Governor DeSantis when he appointed you. You said right then and there, I'm not a politician. But you know what? You kind of had to become one because you ran for sheriff. So how was that? Because it got ugly at times.
Yeah, look, it was a huge learning curve for me, you know, and I still stick with that premise in that this is an elected role, which means the people have the right to choose. And it requires some political navigating and understanding how to convey a message and get out into the community and strategizing and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not a senator. I'm not a representative. I'm not a legislator. You know, part of my responsibility is to be the chief law enforcement officer and focus on the public safety side. So what I did was to make sure that my campaign message was a message based on performance and put forth a lot of projects and things that the community had called for so many years. And we had success with it.
And Sheriff Tony, let's talk about some of the changes that you want to bring about within the Broward Sheriff's Department, because, of course, you came in right away and you hit the ground running. And you were proactive, I know, on some things that made news, not only locally, but nationwide, like the deputies that were involved with DeLuca Roll and some other deputies that were accused of doing some things as well. But you took action right away by reprimanding them. So I want to know about some of your goals and some of the changes you intend on making, as well as those you've already made.
Well, I appreciate the time. I'll tell you from the beginning, you know, we started with the concerns about school safety. Of course, that was one of the core reasons driving behind me accepting the appointment. We had the tragedy in Parkland. And so we've reinvested roughly $60 million within the first 6 months to build out a real-time crime center, make sure we track and monitor all our schools. We end up advancing our training protocols to be one of the top trained organizations in the United States when it comes to credentials from FBI, Homeland Security. And Jawan, that was the easy part really of accepting command. What became challenging was having to change the culture that was really tolerated here, in that law enforcement officials, when they did step outside the bounds of their authority and violate the rights of the people we're supposed to protect, oftentimes had received very marginal discipline. And to your point, I came in and said, no, we're not going to slap people on the wrist. We're going to hold people to the highest standard, and end up having to terminate, several different employees from excessive force, from the DeLuca Road case, which you talked about, where a young 15, 16-year-old man face was slammed into the ground. And that was the beginning point for me to say, hey, wait a minute, we can't allow this to continue, because we don't want to see Broward County burned down. We don't want to see a George Floyd murder right here in Broward County. And so we instantly start putting in new policies and protocols, to beginning with an early warning system to track and monitor deputies who may exhibit signs of excessive force or overaggression, and capture them early enough to either retrain them, reassign them, or even remove them before someone's hurting. We've reestablished and structured our professional standards committee, bringing in, a Julio Gonzalez, a judge, which we've never done before, hiring him to be the chairman, to ensure that our committee would be very objective in how we approach looking at, should we discipline somebody, should they be terminated, should they be fired, and not create the blue wall, which is so often in this profession. We developed the agency's first use of force review board. Now we track and monitor every single use of force case that occurs across all of our jurisdictions, and bring it in-house among subject matter experts, so that we can be able to say, hey, are we doing this right? Are we doing it wrong? And then the last thing I would highlight to continue our dialogue is the fact that we've also gone out and start investing into the community. We created a social justice task force. We started for the first time a racial equity and implicit bias training for the entire law enforcement community here in Broward County, and we are funding that out of this office. So we're on the right track, but again, I think there's so many more things we have to do, and some of these things that we're going to be doing in the future is going to be partnerships with the state attorney as well as the public defender's office.
Well, Sheriff Tony, I got to ask you, I mean, you made these changes, but as soon as you started making these changes, especially those when you started disciplining deputies, then you received backlash among some of your fellow deputies or law enforcement personnel. You received some backlash, and that then turned into ugliness, because then they started bringing up your past and everything else when you decided to run for sheriff. How did you deal with that?
Look, I had to remain focused. One of the things, to your point earlier about navigating the politics and figuring it out, was understanding that the efforts by a very small group, some of our union presidents, was designed to distract the community with, my childhood, growing up in the inner cities of Philadelphia, being in a shooting, watching friends get killed, having to shoot and kill someone, all these things that occurred almost 30 years ago, they wanted to put in the surface. But the community understood, look, anytime that someone comes into an administration and to this level and put forth such drastic changes in a culture, there's going to be resistance. There's going to be conflict. And I would, advise my new colleagues here from the public defender's office as well as the state attorney's office to anticipate internal resistance, but stay the course. At the end of the day, we all work for the residents here in Broward County. They put us in these respective offices to do the things that they see suitable in terms of their elected officials. And so I stayed focused. I didn't let that become the narrative, and I continue to push the message about what we had accomplished in this organization.
And what does it mean to you as a Black man to hold this position?
It's a huge opportunity. And I have to say this, I grew up in an environment where long ago, I was George Floyd. I remember being that teenage kid being tossed against the ground and having a knee on my neck and being accused of things that I did not do. And it drove me to get into law enforcement. I had never anticipated that at some point in my, adult and professional career, that I would be the chief law enforcement officer here in Broward County. But I understood that by accepting this office, accepting this command, that I was not only going to have to do it well, but I was going to have to do it exceptionally well. And that there would be zero, room for error, for failures, for the inability to exhibit signs of incompetency in any area. And so it's a huge honor to be the first, but history is only successful if you're able to change the present and make sure that the future of this organization is longstanding. The things we set forth, Jawan, in the last 20 months, they have to be given time to nurture and mature and turn into longstanding policies and practices here.
And let's talk about COVID-19 for a little bit, because, of course, when COVID-19 hit, you were criticized basically for your response to providing enough protective equipment for your staff. So where does that stand today?
Well, it stands where we were at. The criticisms, again, that you talk about the COVID-19 element was, again, a strategic plan to distract this community with the fact that we were doing well here. We've invested over $5 million in personal protection equipment, and we have the most robust inventory of this entire 1,300 plus square miles. And we haven't stopped there. One of the things I had looked at was what can we do to prepare our agency in this county for sake of a new virus or an extension of this COVID-19. And we started the agency's first strategic stockpile of personal protection equipment. And that's not going to be limited to Broward Sheriff's Office, but for all our municipals. We're looking at investing roughly $10 million into that stockpile to ensure we don't have to rely on the state or the federal system to help bail us out, because we're responsible for taking care of the people here in Broward County.
Sheriff Tony, I want to thank you so much. And again, congratulations on your big win and becoming Broward County Sheriff and the first Black sheriff in Broward County. Thank you so much for joining us for this all-important conversation. We really appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on, and I hope we get a chance to do it again.
You got it. We will. I'm going to be.
Right.
I'm definitely going to be calling you soon, as always.
Amen.
Thank you, brother. You got it. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. And we apologize for the whole technical thing that we had just there. But again, it's live here. It's live streaming. But the great news is that NBC6 Voices will be coming back on air starting this Saturday at 9:30 a.m. on NBC6. So again, I want to know what you thought about the show. I want to know what you thought. I want to know what questions you have. Please follow me at JawanNBC6 on Instagram or on Twitter at JawanNBC6. Let me know. Let me know your thoughts. And remember that education is the key to success. If you believe, you will succeed. Have a great week.